Welcome back. My name is Craig Meister. I'm a college admissions coach. I make videos about all facets of the first year application process to American undergraduate institutions. I sometimes even talk about international colleges as well. You can learn more about me and how you can work with me one-on-one throughout the entire college admissions process at my website, collegemeister.com. Today I want to talk about one of the ways, and there are many, but just one of the ways in which the college admissions process in the United States has become the opposite of student-centered. And it is a little old story about the Coalition for College. Some of you may have heard about the Coalition for College and its Scoir application, which right there, it sort of adds complexity because there's two different brandings. But basically, the backstory on this is that several years ago, many years, frankly, now, many students who are applying to colleges these days were very young, very toddlers, basically, when this happened. But many years ago, the Common Application, which is by far the largest application portal for most American colleges and universities, most students can only use the Common Application in order to apply to colleges and universities in the United States because that's how many members the Common Application has. But many years ago, there was a year that the Common Application redesigned itself, and there were a lot of problems launching that year's Common Application. There were a lot of bugs. There were just a lot of issues. It was a complete disaster, and the Common Application had many weeks where it was not functioning properly, or the actual layout was just really unaesthetically, it was very aesthetically unpleasing. Let's put it that way. There was just a lot of issues. It was a massive redesign, but also a functionality design change. And so as a result, the Common App was not working. It was not working for weeks very well. It was very buggy, very crashy. All these different things were happening. So at that time, many college presidents who had put all their eggs in the basket of the Common Application got very concerned that they had maybe supported a monopoly that they shouldn't, and maybe they should diversify the ways in which students would be able to apply to their institutions. At the time, there was another application that had been utterly destroyed, basically, but it was still on its last legs, known as the Universal College Application, that had actually taken some of the ways in which the Common Application sort of stole, for lack of a better word, a lot of the wind out of the sails of the Universal College Application. And many of the people behind the Universal College Application actually were behind the initial success and launch of the Common Application. But it was too small. It was on the downward trend, the Universal College Application was. And they were lovely people, by the way, behind the Universal College Application. They were really good, earnest, nice people. But that was not something that college presidents or admissions enrollment managers or provosts or whatever wanted to put their eggs in that basket in order to diversify away from the Common App. So what they did is they created a new entity known as the Coalition. And the Coalition was going to brand itself as being very much open and accessible, all about access. And in fact, there was sort of a commitment, financial commitment amongst many of the institutions. In order to join, you had to really believe in access and maybe even financial access in terms of actual brass tax numbers. So the Coalition was born as basically a new consortium of colleges. It was a new application. It was a new competing application for the Common Application. And some colleges, a handful of colleges, even went Coalition exclusive. Some colleges that never were on the Common App joined the Coalition and made it their sole means by which to apply to that institution. So schools like University of Maryland College Park or UW, University of Washington, and University of Florida were all on the Coalition application before they were on the Common Application. And in some cases, they were exclusive, meaning that the only way you could apply again was through the Coalition application. So this was all started in response to the disastrous debut of a new version of a Common Application. A new application was formed in the years after, and it never really took hold that much, except for those colleges that were exclusive. Obviously, students who are applying to a big state school and that's the only application in town, the Coalition was the way you had to apply, right? So, but for all the other schools that had one foot in the Common App and one foot maybe in their own app, or one foot in the Universal College app still, or also now had a foot in they were probably an octopus because they have a lot of feet, but they had another foot in the Coalition. The Coalition never was a main driver of applications. But colleges like to have it because it was a sort of a backstop or an insurance policy if something should ever go awry with the common application again. Fast forward to today, those colleges that were exclusive with the coalition application have either dropped entirely or are no longer exclusive with the coalition application, and they've joined the common app. So the coalition sort of marches on. It's still officially alive, but it's a nuisance more than it is a support system in any way, shape, or form for the vast, vast, vast majority of first-year college applicants around the world. Because if you can do something in the Common App and do it well, because the Common App is now working basically well, why would you want to complicate matters and start applying via the coalition application? But the coalition still lives on. And as a result, when college admissions representatives visit high schools or give presentations, they always will mention, most likely, that they offer the opportunity for students to apply via both the common application and, if a school is still a member of the coalition for college, they can also apply not to what is called the coalition application anymore, but it's sort of what the coalition application has outsourced its application to, which is known as the Scoir application. This is a platform, a CRM tool that many schools, particularly private schools, use. And it's called sort of the Scoir login for the Coalition for College application. You create a Scoir login and you can create a Coalition for College application via Scoir. Is this complicated? And this is overly complicated just in terms of what I'm saying. Why am I talking about all this today? Why does this even exist? It exists for colleges and universities alone. This is all for and for Scoir, obviously, and for whoever's making money by Scoir or by the coalition. That's who the coalition and Scoir exist for. It does not exist for students. Now, there are some schools that joined Scoir, which is a competitor to Naviance and My Learning and Unifrog and these other platforms that schools have memberships to. Scoir, for a number of years, was free to join. So a number of schools jumped from Naviance, which charges a fee to high schools, and they jumped to Scoir because it's sort of basically another version of Naviance. But now Scoir has somehow wiggled its way into the world of coalition world and now offers the coalition application via their platform Scoir. But you can still apply via the coalition application if your high school is not a member of Scoir. But if your high school is a member of Scoir, it's like built in. Imagine having your college application built into Naviance if you go to a Naviance school. Or imagine having your college application built into Maya Learning or built into Unifrog or Cialfo. That's basically what the Scoir application is for, or the coalition application is for Scoir school students. And who are Scoir school students? A lot of them go to nice, high-priced, elite, arguably, private schools. So they're all about access. But Scoir is ultimately built on the back of a lot of independent schools moving over to them from using Naviance. Even if that wasn't the case, so that's sort of ironic because, the coalition was all about access and spreading opportunity. Meanwhile, kids who go to a low college going population high school, let's say only 50% or fewer of kids from that high school go to the college after graduation, they are coming at the college admissions process from a huge disadvantage because they don't know much about the players in this industry, and it really is an industry. So they hear about the coalition application. Why do these lovely students at these disadvantaged schools around the world, who it's already like a learning curve to learn about the common application, and the fact that maybe your high school does or doesn't have a platform like Naviance or Scoir or Maya Learning or Cialfo or one of these, Unifrog, one of these others. Maybe you have to do it all through the Common App and your school does everything by hand still, and it's in an underprivileged part of the United States or the world. It's hard enough to learn about the Common App and how to sort of navigate that process and what it really means to be on the Common App and then the supplements. Like, that's a learning curve for a 17, 18-year-old person to begin with, and their parents, many of whom may be first generation, they never went to college themselves. That's hard enough. But then to throw the extra wrinkle into the process of, oh, by the way, you could also apply on the coalition. That's almost like negligence, I think, in the minds from the perspective of students and families. To say, oh, you don't have to use the Common App, you could use the coalition. That leaves people thinking, well, what is the coalition? Should I use the coalition? Now, of course, many college admissions officers will follow up by saying, There we give no preference to the Coalition app or the Scoir app via Coalition or the Common App. You can use either. But why even introduce it when it obviously, to do the Coalition or Scoir application would frankly be such a detour and such an unnecessarily added wrinkle to your college application process for the vast majority of students. To even introduce it is completely in the interest of the colleges and the high schools that are already aligned with the Coalition for College or Scoir, that it really almost feels like negligence, or almost, I would go even so far as to say malpractice, for colleges to say, you can apply to us on the Coalition or Scoir application too. You don't have to use the Common App. Why am I saying this? Because the Common Application works these days. It's worked for years. Now, am I a huge fan of monopolies? No, I'm not. I don't believe in monopolies, but it is what it is. In the United States, to apply to college as a first-year applicant, the Common Application is basically the monopoly. There are a few outliers, the UCs, the Georgetown and MIT. These are some outliers, but by and large, if you've heard of a college, it's on the Common Application, and it's a selective college. So the Common App's where it's at right now, and it's working. So knock on wood, it keeps working. So I'm not here to sell you on the Common App. What I am here to say is that for the vast majority of students and families, all you need to know about is the Common App. You do not need to think about or ever use the Coalition, and I would strongly recommend against using the Coalition or Scoir application because it's clunky, it's not as user-friendly, it's not as student-centered, and it may be more student-centered for those handful of students relatively that are going to Scoir schools, but even then there's some sort of loopholes and things that make it a little less smooth and efficient, I think, especially in terms of the teacher recommendation submission process, than the Common Application, that everything is built in. Because now, of course, the college, the high schools that submit via Scoir, the way in which letters of recommendation are sent is a little different than via the Common App. So the Common App no longer is hooked up with or built with adaptability, not adaptability, what's the word I'm looking for, with reciprocity with Scoir. So Scoir was never really built into the interface of the back end of Naviance, the end of the Common App, like the Naviance was, or Maya Learning was, or Unifrog is, or Cialpho is. So Scoir is sort of like this outlier doing its own thing with the Coalition. It's like a little baby competitor to the Common App. But again, why would you create this wrinkle or this unnecessary other option in the process unnecessarily, to make it very hard for people who are just maybe engaging one time in their entire lives in the college admissions process to have to learn about this other process? Well, I'll tell you why. One way this is actually really beneficial, again, to colleges, beyond obviously the money they make off of the applications, regardless of where they come from, is let's talk about serial appliers, who I am really against. I do not believe in serial applying, meaning students who apply to way more colleges than they should be. I think that's illustrative of everything wrong with the college admissions process. If you are applying to 15 or more colleges, something has gone horribly wrong in your revising process, or you're in it for the wrong reasons, or you don't know what the heck you're doing and you're just shooting in the dark. And that's bad enough. And so as a result, the Common Application has a limit. They have a limit on how many applications you can submit with one Common Application account. I think the limit is far too high. I would bring it down by half, but the current limit to apply to colleges on the Common Application is 20. So that means that if you're Jane in Colorado or John in Florida, you are both limited to only applying to 20 colleges each on the Common Application. Once you hit 20, which I think is an insanely high number, you can no longer apply to more colleges on the Common Application. You would have to create a new account, which would create a lot of complexities, to have a new email. It would just be a mess, so you wouldn't do it. However, you could apply to 20 colleges on the Common App, and then you can apply to more. I don't even know the number because I'm not going to look into it. I don't want to research it. I don't want to use my bandwidth to learn about the Coalition because it's that much of a waste of time. But you could learn about the Coalition, whether you go to a Scoir school or not. You could apply to some more colleges via the Coalition. So you can become a serial applier. You hear those stories in the news. John got in, or Johnny got in, or Kwame got into 40 colleges, and he got $25 billion in scholarships. How did he apply to 25 colleges? How did he apply to 30 or 40 colleges? Well, he ended up applying directly to some of these colleges via their own applications, and or he double dipped. He applied to 20 on the Common App, and then he applied to another, God knows how many, 20 on the Coalition. So this Coalition benefits how do I say this politically correct? Those who take the most advantage of this process and hurt the majority of people going through this process, trying to be honest, trying to think about themselves and what's right for themselves, but not trying to over apply. There's no college president or enrollment manager or provost or director of admissions would, with a straight face, say that they approve of someone applying to 30 colleges. But behind closed doors, they're fine with it because they get more application fees coming to them, and they also can lower their acceptance rates by all these people who are obsessed with the college admissions process and can now apply to more than 20 colleges, which the coalition allows you to do in a more efficient manner than just picking off a few institutional applications here and there. So for that reason alone, I'm very anti-coalition, beyond the fact that I don't think it's a good user interface. It hasn't been since it launched, frankly. It was never as good as the Universal College application, which I thought for many years was superior to the Common App, but the Common App is okay enough now. So why am I telling you all this? If you ever hear your high school counselor pressure you to apply via the coalition, it's probably because you go to a high school that is a Scoir high school, meaning your school uses a platform known as Scoir for their management of, it's sort of like their online college counseling office where you can learn about colleges, look at statistics, look at scattergrams. They use something known as Scoir, whereas the school down the school street might use Naviance or Maya Learning or C Alpha or Unifrog or whatever. And those high school college counselors have no motivation to promote the coalition application because it's not built into their interface, because the Common App works beautifully with all those other platforms, whereas the Scoir platform works most beautifully, and because it is built from Scoir with the Scoir coalition application. So that's number one. If you ever have a counselor pressuring you to apply to colleges via Scoir, that should really raise some red flags right there for you, because A, not all colleges are on Scoir or the Scoir coalition application. So you're going to have more colleges to work from the Common App. So I would still recommend, even if you go to a Scoir school, it's in your best interest to apply via the Common App. Make the college counselors at your high school do the work to send the documents the way they need to send them to get them to the right place via the Common App. Don't use the Scoir application. But the other thing, which is the coalition application. Again, I'm very anti-Scoir and I'm very anti-coalition, because it's not thinking about what's in the best interest of the students and the families. It's thinking about what's in the best interest of other players in this. The other thing I would say is, if you are a bad actor, which I would say if you have the intent going into the college admissions process, even if you're a nice person generally in your day-to-day life, I would call you a bad actor if you're a student or family is thinking you're going to apply to more than 20 colleges. Do not do that to yourself. You're hurting yourself, but you're also hurting the whole process and the other students. You're not going to have a better shot of getting into more colleges by applying to more colleges in most cases. I mean, obviously, you're going to get into more colleges because you're going to apply to more colleges, but it's not going to give you, at the selective level, it's not going to give you what I think is a value added enough to make it worth it. Plus, your quality of application writing is going to go down because you're spreading yourself too thin by sending out too many supplemental essays, that all the quality of your application essays will go down. If you think you're going to increase your likelihood of getting into an elite or selective college, highly selective college, by applying to 30 or 40 of them via the coalition and the Common App, I think you're mistaken. I think it actually is the opposite. I think you're actually going to reduce your chances of getting in, because for most applicants, not all, but for most applicants, the quality of their application suffers so much by over-applying that it's not worth it to over-apply. It's better to actually find right fit schools for you, zero in on those, let's say, 6 to 9 schools max, make sure there are safeties, make sure there are possibles, make sure there are reaches, and then put all your heart and soul into those 6 to 9 applications. Really perfect them, be very meticulous on developing them, essay-wise, make sure you read the fine print of each supplement, doing everything you can, engage in interviews with those, but don't spread yourself too thin. I think you're going to have a better percentage success, sort of like a better batting average, with those 6 to 9 if they are well thought out, carefully curated colleges on your list than you would have if you apply to 40 or 50. Now, again, this obviously doesn't necessarily apply if you're applying to very easy to get into schools and you're just fishing for scholarships and acceptance letters and you just want to compete with the guy or girl sitting next to you in chemistry class and it's all about getting into as many colleges or getting as much scholarship as money as possible. Then sure, I guess you can apply to more, but that just seems like a waste of your time and energy. What's the point? You're only going to go to one of these colleges and therefore you're only going to get one package of scholarships or merit or need-based aid, and you're going to go to just one of them. What are you trying to prove by getting into 35 or 45 colleges? The other thing I would say just simply is you do not want to make this process any more stressful than it probably already is. And so why learn about the coalition and engage in that application if you're not going to a Scoir school, it makes literally no sense in my mind, because there's no college right now. It could change, but at least as of right now, as far as I know, there's no college in the United States that is Scoir or coalition exclusive. That's especially no notable college that's getting a lot of applications. So any college you can apply to on Scoir, you can apply to on the Common App. It does not work the other way around. So a square is always a rectangle, but a rectangle is not always a square. There are many colleges on the Common App that are not on the Scoir coalition application. So you've sit through this video. It's 20 minutes in. You're probably thinking, what a waste of time, 20 minutes. I hope this hasn't been a waste of time, but I do want you to know confidently that you should not worry about Scoir. You should not worry about the coalition. Let that whole thing collapse of its own weight in the future, or have it present itself as having some value added to students or families, and then I'll by all means promote it. But at this point today, I see absolutely zero value added to the coalition application by Scoir. I don't know if that's the official terminology. I think they call it the Scoir X coalition or something. I mean, depending on the branding of this page you go to, there's more branding for Scoir, there's more branding for the coalition. Again, a complete fail in terms of making this user-friendly for students and families. We who work in this industry know about this because we've been around for 10, 20 years doing this. And so we know the players, we know where these things have sort of emanated from over the history of them. But for families going through it once, it's a one and done thing. Like, this is unnecessary. Why are you putting families through this when they can just use the Common Application? That's my big takeaway. Use the Common Application. I'm getting no kickbacks from the Common Application. In fact, I think the Common Application has done many things wrong through the years. I'm not a fan of the Common Application in of itself. I do not like monopolies, but the fact is it's easier for you to use as a student or family 99 times out of 100. And I would almost go as so far as to say 999 times out of 1,000. It's easier to use. So there's no point for you to waste time, energy, bandwidth thinking about the coalition application. When someone tells you about using it, I would just put them on mute if at all possible. Because you want to make this process as efficient and effective and successful for you as possible. And the Common App is the way to do that 999 times out of 1,000. Again, if you enjoyed this video, by all means, watch my back catalog of videos at youtube.com/collegemeister. Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. If you want to learn about how you can work with me throughout every stage of the college application process, maybe you want help on your list, or maybe you want help developing a very strong extracurricular resume. Oh, by the way, I have a extracurricular resume course linked below this video called How to Build an Extraordinary Extracurricular Resume. You can buy that for free right now. Oh, not for free, but for just a few dollars. $9 to rent, $19 to buy. Link below this video. You may want to work with me one-on-one in order to get your essays in good shape for the colleges at the top of your list. Whatever the case may be, you can also go to my website, collegemeister.com, to learn more about me and how you can work with me one-on-one throughout the entire college admissions process. Until next time, my name is Craig Meister. Stay safe, stay well, and most importantly, try your very best to stay stress-free throughout the entire college application process.